I still hear the voice. Sometimes when the silence in my apartment gets too heavy, or when the rain drums against my window pane at 3 in the morning, I can hear her whimpering my name through the static of a dead line. They tell you that as a 911 dispatcher, you develop a Teflon soul, that the trauma slides right off you, leaving no mark. That is a lie. Some calls stick. Some calls burrow into your psyche like a parasite and refuse to let go. My name is Mara Kovich, and I've sat in the ergonomic chair of the Blackwood County Dispatch Center for 15 years. I've guided mothers through births, talked suicidal teenagers off bridges, and listened to the last breaths of gunshot victims. But nothing prepared me for the call I took on November 14th, during the worst electrical storm Oregon had seen in a decade. It was 3:12 a.m. The center was dimly lit, the hum of the servers providing a low, hypnotic drone beneath the cacophony of thunder rattling the reinforced glass. Most of the town was asleep or hiding from the gale force winds. The boards were quiet, suspiciously so. Then line 4 blinked red. I clicked the headset, my voice automatic, stripped of exhaustion. 911, what is your emergency? At first, there was only the sound of heavy breathing, wet, ragged gasps, as if the person on the other end was drowning in air. Ma'am? Sir? Can you hear me? I pressed, leaning closer to the monitor. He's watching me, a woman's voice whispered. It was trembling, pitched high with a visceral terror that made the hair on my arms stand up. He's just standing in the rain. Okay, I need you to stay calm, I said, my fingers flying across the keyboard to trace the call. The GPS triangulated a signal deep in the heavily forested area north of the reservoir, Old Miller's Road. It was a dead zone, miles from the nearest neighbor. What is your name? Isla Morel. Okay, Isla, are you alone in the house? Yes, she choked out. My husband is on a business trip. I'm alone. I woke up because the dog was barking. And then I looked out the bedroom window. Is the person trying to enter the home? I asked, dispatching a unit. I noticed my hand shaking slightly. The connection was fuzzy, overlaid with a strange, rhythmic crackling sound. It didn't sound like typical static. It sounded like water dripping directly onto a microphone. No, Isla whispered. That's the worst part. The figure isn't moving. It's just standing by the oak tree, staring up at my window. It's pouring rain, Mara, freezing rain, but the figure isn't shivering. She used my name. I hadn't given it to her. A chill violently seized my spine. The caller ID only displayed my operator number. Isla, I have officers on the way, but the storm is slowing them down. I need you to make sure all your doors and windows are locked. Can you do that for me? I locked them, she said, her voice dropping an octave. But the lightning just flashed. I saw the face. I waited, dread pooling in my stomach. Do you know who it is, Isla? There was a silence on the line so profound I thought the call had dropped. Then I heard a sound that I will never forget. A wet, guttural sob that sounded more like an animal in a trap than a human being. It's not a he, she wept, her voice barely audible over the increasing interference. Mara, the thing in the yard. It's wearing my blue nightgown. It has my hair. It has my face. I froze. Isla, are you saying someone is dressed like you? No, she screamed, the sound distorting in my ear. It's me. It's me standing out there in the rain. And oh God, she's smiling at me. Suddenly the line hissed, and I heard a tapping sound. Tap, tap, tap. Not from the phone. The sound was coming from the glass window of my dispatch booth. I whipped my head around, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. It wasn't a monster. It was Jerry, the night shift supervisor, tapping his pen against the reinforced glass of my booth, mouthing the word, coffee? I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding and waved him off, turning my trembling hands back to the console. The adrenaline crash left me dizzy, but the terror on line 4 was still very real. Isla, I'm still here, I said, forcing my voice into that steely, professional calmness that had taken me a decade to perfect. I need you to move away from the window. Go to a room with a lock, preferably one without exterior windows, the bathroom or a closet. It's gone, Isla whimpered. The connection was deteriorating. The sound of water, that maddening, rhythmic dripping, was louder now. sounding less like interference and more like liquid pooling on the floorboards of her house. "What is gone, Isla?" "The woman, me, the thing that looks like me," she sobbed, her breath hitching. "The yard is empty. Mara, she moved so fast. 1 second she was by the tree and then she just blurred." "That's good, Isla. Maybe she ran off. The deputies are 10 minutes out," I lied. The storm had washed out the bridge on County Road 9. Help was at least 20 minutes away. I was typing furiously into the CAD system, trying to pull up the premise history for the address she had given. 404 Old Millers Road. "No," Isla whispered, her voice trembling so violently the microphone peaked with static. "She didn't run off. I can hear the back porch steps creaking. They are heavy, wet steps. Slap, slap, slap." My stomach dropped. "Isla, listen to me. Get into the master bedroom closet. Take the phone. Do not hang up. Do it now." I heard the frantic rustling of fabric, the thud of bare feet on hardwood, and the click of a heavy lock sliding into place. "I'm in," she breathed. "I'm in the closet. I have a gun. My husband's revolver keeps it on the top shelf. I have it." "Good," I said, though the rulebook says never to encourage a caller to engage. "Keep it pointed at the door. You're going to be okay." My computer screen finally loaded the history for 404 Old Millers Road. I stared at the monitor, blinking hard, trying to make sense of the text blinking in amber against the black background. Status: condemned. Structural fire. Fatality recorded 2014. "Isla," I asked slowly, a cold sweat breaking out on my forehead. "How long have you lived in this house?" "About 6 months," she whispered. "Why? Do you hear the sirens?" I didn't answer. I couldn't tell her that according to my screen, the house she was standing in was a charred skeleton of wood and ash. I couldn't tell her that nobody had lived there for a decade. "Mara!" Isla's voice changed. It wasn't fearful anymore. It was confused. The footsteps stopped. "Stay quiet," I commanded. "No, you don't understand," she said. They stopped right outside the bedroom door. But I didn't hear the door open. Then, a sound came through my headset that made me rip the earpiece away for a second. It was a high-pitched, wet squeal, the sound of a wet finger dragging down a pane of glass. But Isla was in a closet. There was no glass. "Isla?" I put the headset back on. "What was that sound?" "She's in the room," Isla whispered, her voice barely a breath. "She didn't open the door. She slid under it. Like water. She's reassembling herself on the rug." "Isla, shoot!" I screamed, breaking protocol. "Shoot!" Bang! The gunshot was deafening over the line. Then, silence. Total, ringing silence. "Isla!" I shouted. "Isla, talk to me!" A beat passed, then 2. "I missed," Isla said. But the voice was wrong. It was Isla's voice, yes, but it lacked the tremor, the fear. It was flat, smooth. "I missed, Mara, but that's okay. I don't need a gun." "Isla, are you hurt?" "I'm not Isla," the voice purred, and suddenly the static on the line cleared up completely, sounding crystal clear, as if the person was standing right behind my chair. "I'm the one who waits in the rain, and now I'm holding the phone." My hands were shaking so violently that I knocked my coffee mug over. Brown liquid splashed across the desk, dripping onto the floor, mimicking the exact sound I had been hearing on the line for the last 10 minutes. Drip, drip, drip. "Who is this?" I demanded, my voice cracking. "Put Isla back on the phone." "Isla is occupied," the voice purred. It was a terrifying mimicry of the woman I had just been speaking to, but all the humanity had been hollowed out. It sounded flat, metallic, like a recording played backward and then forward again. She is looking at herself in the mirror. She is screaming, but she has no mouth. "Do you want to hear?" "I am recording this call," I stammered, trying to regain some semblance of authority. "Officers are outside." "Are they?" The voice amused. Just then, the radio on my other console crackled to life. It was Sergeant Miller, the lead unit I had dispatched. "Dispatch, this is 4 Alpha. We are at the location, 404 Old Millers Road." The radio static hissed. "Mara, confirm the address?" I held down the push-to-talk button, my eyes darting between the radio and the phone line where the entity waited. Affirmative 4 Alpha, 404 Old Millers. Suspect is inside. Shots fired. Repeat, shots fired. There was a long pause on the radio. When Miller spoke again, his voice was tight with confusion. Mara, there is no house here. We're standing in the foundation of the old burnout. There are trees growing through the living room floor. There's no roof. There's no door to knock on. I felt the room spin. That's impossible. I have an active caller on the landline inside the residence. I just heard a gunshot. There is no landline, Mara, Miller said, his tone shifting to concern. The telephone pole is snapped in half. It's been down for years. I looked at my screen. The call was active. The timer was ticking, 0:14:22. Did you hear that, Mara? The voice on the phone whispered. It was closer now, intimate, as if the speaker's lips were brushing against the microphone of my headset. He says I'm not here, but you hear me, don't you? How are you doing this? I whispered, tears blurring my vision. Who are you? I'm the water, the voice said. I'm the rain that never stops. I'm the call you didn't answer 10 years ago. The air in the dispatch center suddenly felt frigid. My breath misted in front of me. 10 years ago, the entity continued, a woman called from this house. The fire had trapped her in the closet. She begged for help. But the dispatcher, she was tired. She made a mistake. She sent the units to Miller's Lane, not Miller's Road. Do you remember the scream she made when the flames came under the door? I clapped a hand over my mouth to stifle a sob. I remembered. God, I remembered. It was my first week. It was the mistake that haunted every nightmare I'd ever had. But the inquiry cleared me. It was a technical error, they said. Isla isn't real, Mara, the voice hissed. I created her for you. I wanted to see if you would save her this time. Stop it! I screamed, ripping the headset off my head and throwing it onto the desk. But the voice didn't stop. It wasn't coming from the headset anymore. I'm not on the phone, Mara, the voice echoed, reverberating through the empty air of the dispatch center, bouncing off the soundproof walls. I spun my chair around. The dispatch center was empty. Jerry was gone. The other operators were gone. The lights were flickering, buzzing like angry hornets. And there, standing in the middle of the room, under the flickering fluorescent light, was a woman. She was soaking wet, water pooling around her bare feet. She was wearing a scorched blue nightgown. She raised her head and I screamed. She didn't have a face. It was just a smooth, pale surface of flesh, reflecting the room like a mirror. And in that reflection, I saw myself, but I wasn't sitting in my chair. I was standing next to her, holding a match. The smell hit me first. It wasn't the sterile scent of ozone and floor wax anymore. It was the thick, choking stench of sulfur and burning wet wood. The water pooling around the faceless woman's feet began to turn black, viscous, and oily. It wasn't rain. It was sludge from a fire hose mixed with ash. I tried to back away, but my chair, my sanctuary for 15 years, was gone. The dispatch center walls were dissolving, peeling away like burnt paper to reveal the skeletal charred ribs of a house in the middle of a storm. You lit the match, the faceless woman said. Her voice didn't come from a mouth. It vibrated in the fillings of my teeth, a frequency of pure accusation. No, I stammered, tears streaming down my face. It was an accident. I sent the units to the wrong street. It was just a mistake. Was it? The entity tilted its head. The smooth surface of her face rippled like mercury. You were tired, Mara. You were angry that night. You hung up on me before the line went dead. You wanted the screaming to stop so you could sleep. My breath hitched. A memory, sharp and jagged as broken glass, sliced through the fog of my denial. I remembered that night 10 years ago. I had been tired. I had taken off my headset while she was still begging for help. I had muted the line. I let her burn because I didn't want to hear the end. I didn't mean to. I sobbed. Exchange, the entity whispered. It stepped closer. The heat radiating from it was unbearable, blistering my skin. The universe requires balance, Mara. A voice for a voice. A life for a life. She reached out with a hand that was dripping with black water and grabbed my wrist. Her touch was colder than liquid nitrogen. "No, get away!" I screamed, flailing. But she was impossibly strong. She yanked me forward, not into her arms, but into the reflection on her face. As I fell into that smooth, mirror-like surface, the world inverted. I felt a sensation of being squeezed through a narrow tube, my body stretching, distorting, breaking apart into data and static. The darkness swallowed me whole. The heat of the fire vanished, replaced by a cold, crushing silence. Then sound returned. But it wasn't the sound of the dispatch center. It was the sound of wind howling through cracks in the wall, the sound of rain hammering on a tin roof. I opened my eyes. I was standing in a dark room. The air smelled of mildew and old dust. I looked down at my body. I was wearing a blue nightgown. My feet were bare and cold against the hardwood floor. Panic, primal and raw, exploded in my chest. I looked around frantically. I knew this room. It was the bedroom at 404 Old Millers Road. Outside the window, lightning flashed. And in the yard, standing under the oak tree, I saw a woman. She was wearing my uniform. She had my headset around her neck. She was holding a coffee mug. She looked up at the window, at me, and smiled. It was my face. She had my face. The phone on the nightstand rang. My hand moved without my permission. I grabbed the receiver, trembling, pressing it to my ear, desperate for salvation. 911, what is your emergency? The voice on the other end said. It was my voice. The voice I had used for 15 years. Smooth, professional, detached. Please, I whispered, the words tumbling out of my mouth just like Isla's had. There's someone in my yard. She looks exactly like me. Stay calm, ma'am. My own voice replied from the dispatch center, sounding bored, distant. I'm pouring myself some coffee. Keep talking. I'm listening. But I knew she wasn't. I could hear the click as she muted the line. Outside, the woman in the yard, the new Mara, began to walk toward the house. She had a match in her hand. And I realized, with a scream that no one would ever hear, that the fire was about to start all over again. The line is dead, but the echo remains. Mara's eternal shift has just begun, trapped in a loop of her own making, forever waiting for a savior that will never come because she was supposed to be the savior. We often think we are the ones in control, sitting safely behind the glass, until the glass breaks. If this story sent a shiver down your spine, please subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. We have many more files to open, and you don't want to miss what haunts us next. I want to hear from you. Do you believe Mara deserved her fate, or was the punishment too severe? And tell me, where in the world are you listening from tonight? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, try not to answer unknown numbers.